The people. Okay, good morning, or good evening, I should say, ladies and gentlemen. How are y'all doing out there in listing land today? This is KTEM 1400 on your radio AM dial. And this right here is the Common Sense with Conn call-in talk show. So if y'all are listing out there in the listing land, feel free to call in. The phone number here to call in is 254-773-1400. Y'all feel free to call in and give me some of your thoughts. This show is not about Conn. This show is about y'all out there in the listing land. You know, if you have something to say, pick up the phone and call us. I'm happy to announce that today we have a guest on our show. Tony is here, and I have asked Tony to come in and visit with us a little bit about what happens when the Communist Party takes over a country. We had a caller not long ago from a student at A&M, and he made the comment that kind of disturbed me. He made the comment, I hope I'm quoting him right, that his professors at A&M were telling him that America has nothing to fear from communism because it can never take hold in America. Can't ever happen. Well, I reminded him that there's a fellow in New York City named Bill de Blasio that is the mayor of the largest city in this country, and unless I'm mistaken, he's a card-carrying, genuine, bona fide communist. Bernie Sanders ran for president, and a lot of people supported him. What is Bernie Sanders? Well, he's a socialist. Extreme socialism is communism. But at any rate, there's so many of you out there in listening land that you may never have been taught what communism is and what it does when it takes over. So we have Tony with us today. And we're going to let Tony kind of explain to us some of the dangers of communism. During the Republican convention, there was a young lady outside in the crowd that was burning an American flag. I'll never forget that. She was burning the American flag, kneeling down on the ground there. And the announcer announced that she was part of the American Revolutionary Communist Party. And I thought, here she is burning an American flag, part of the Revolutionary Communist Party, and nobody has kicked her in the head. I probably shouldn't have said that. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Tony and let him discuss this just a little bit. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, Conn, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad to have you on the show. Should I tell folks what you do for a living?
I mean, if you like, it's not an issue.
Well, Tony has the Dynasty Chinese Restaurant over here on 2305. Very, very nice place to eat. Good food, very courteous people, clean environment. Get a chance, go by there and eat you some Chinese food. At any rate, here is Tony. I'm going to turn it over to him for a minute.
Hey, Conn. I know you came by our restaurant one day, and we kind of sat and talked. I know you came in talking about your show, and then it kind of clicked. So we talked about what you did and what I did. And I think at the time, my mom, she was actually visiting Taiwan. She was the one that opened the store for my dad, because you're asking about how the restaurant started and everything like that. And that's around the time when I figured out what my family history was. I didn't quite understand this when I was a kid, because I never asked. My mom never talked about it. But this was our second time going back to Taiwan, visiting my grandfather. At that time, he was 100 years old. Today, he's 103. So she's actually going back again this year to go visit him. But he had stomach cancer, and it is what it is. He's 100 years old, and we thought he may not
Well, but he's led
around much longer.
He's led a good life, and I'll bet if you ask him, he has no complaints.
Yeah.
When you're 100 and something years old and it's the end of the trail, well, it's the end of the trail. We're all going to get there someday.
That's correct. Well, at any rate, when she went to go visit my grandfather in Taiwan, when she came back and asked, how everything was and everything, she said it was good. Grandfather, he's in the hospital and we don't know how much more time he has left. But he had asked me to take him back to China. And I said, China? Well, what do you mean? Why does he want to go back to China? He said, well, he needs to go visit his father. And I kind of puzzled. I was like, is my grandfather that old and still around, or am I misunderstanding this? He said, no, he wants to go visit his grave. I was like, what happened to my great-grandfather? I never asked this question before. She never told me. And he said, well, he was actually killed in China. And, of course, I'm curious and asked why. And she told me the story. And the story basically goes, my family history is that my great-grandfather had died in China, executed in the streets by the Communist Party. And the reason for that was he happened to be the town elder, and that my uncle had a rice farming business. In communism, they confiscated all the personal property that everybody had, and the government just takes it. My great-grandfather, he was the elder of the town, think of like a town mayor, but of a village. And he supported the philosophy of, what you have, you earn, and you keep.
He's probably a follower of Chiang Kai-shek.
He was. Yeah, he was. And because of that, a lot of people either had to run, or they would, if they were known to be a Chiang Kai-shek follower, they would be executed.
Well, and see, the communists did then what they've done since then. If they take over a country, and I've read this somewhere, if they take over a free country, the people that helped the Communist Party take over that country, they kill them, because the people that helped them take over the country are the same ones that would help take it back. So they just execute them. I think that, and I've said this before, but everyone in this country ought to go read the book or go see the movie The Killing Field, because we are so protected in this country. Nobody has told us what communism really is and what it does, and how many people since 1913 have been killed in the name of communism. It is millions of people.
Yeah, it's something that in the United States, especially if you're born here, I was, and I didn't quite understand the importance until my mother told me the whole story. I gave you a short version because we would be sitting here for about an hour if I told you the whole thing. But the thing that we take advantage of is the Constitution, the right to speak your mind, to speak your thoughts, and without persecution.
Yeah, and your great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, I guess, he did not have the First Amendment.
That's correct.
They didn't have the Constitution. They didn't have the First Amendment. They didn't have the Second Amendment. He couldn't defend himself. Now, I wasn't there, but I just can imagine that they came in and got him by the arm, took him out there in the street. He could not resist. He could not defend himself. They just set him down and shot him in the back of the head. Well, is that what we want for the future of this country? We're not being taught in school the horrors and the dangers of communism. I think so many young people, so many people Tony's age, think, oh, communism be okay. It equalizes everybody and we all are equal. Yeah, they all suffer equally under communism. But I didn't mean to interrupt there, Tony, but I get kind of about half passionate about the freedoms that we have in this country, and so many people take those freedoms for granted. Just for example, like I said, his great-grandfather, he couldn't defend himself. The neighbors couldn't defend him against the military or whoever it was.
Yes, because in China, firearms were legal and banned. Only the military could have it. And when the communists took over, obviously, well, the people aren't armed. I mean, except with pitchforks.
Yeah. And how do you defend yourself against an armed military when all you've got's a pitchfork or a big club or something? So why are we the freest country in the history of the world? Why is that? Could it be because of our founding fathers who wrote up the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, etc., gave us those freedoms? Is that why we're the greatest, freest country in the world?
Absolutely.
I read once, a year or so ago, the rate of gun ownership in England, for example, is 0.6% of the population. The rate of gun ownership in this country is something like 98%. I mean, we got, like 500 million guns in this country. And there is a lot of people that want to confiscate guns. They want to outlaw guns.
It's funny you mentioned that. The most deaths that ever occur typically happens through government genocide, and most people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You talk about Russia through Stalin. You look at China.
And a professor, I think at Georgetown University recently was on the news, and he called for white genocide. That was a college professor. It was on the news. They showed him on TV calling for white genocide. What is happening to our country? Better question, what is happening to the people in our country? Are we losing our mind or what?
They're losing, I think, perspective.
Yes. Good point.
That's the scary part about it is, when you don't have a reference point because it's been that long ago, people think history doesn't repeat itself. And I think we have all been taught that, if you don't understand how and what happened in history, it will repeat itself.
You bet.
Human nature is human nature. It's it's no different than the laws of physics. The only thing that stops it is understanding how gravity works and why things happen. Same thing with human nature.
Well, my professor at A&M back in the dark ages made a statement. He was talking about the Civil War. He said, let's talk about the Civil War era. Let's put this in perspective. Just what Tony just said. And he went on to talk about what really took place prior to the Civil War and during the Civil War. And it's not what you hear today. He was telling us the truth. But he said, let's keep it in perspective. I think we got to pay a few bills around here, I believe. Better turn it over to Eric for just a few minutes here. Go get them, Eric. Sick them. Chinese food here, folks. If you want to talk about some good food, Dynasty Chinese Restaurant is the place for you to go. You'll always receive super customer service and delicious food at Dynasty. It's a Temple favorite for a dine-in, buffet, takeout, or delivery. Dynasty is family-owned and operated. They are strong believers in electrical liberty and are avid as well as this providing total new installation at 778-4434. Friendly customer service 778-4444. So if you need any type of reservation or AC work, get out there for a date night or just a place to order for delivery for that quiet night at home after a long day. Or if you're more tech-savvy, I guess, than me, place your order online at www.dynastychineserestaurant.com. They're located at 2501 Airport Road in Temple. 2501 Airport Road in Temple. You can also visit them on Facebook at Dynasty Delivery. Okay, folks, Academy Paint and Body. That's owned and operated by some very patriotic people that are strong supporters of this show. Now, I say that because I go in there and visit with them for a minute. Here we are back on the Common Sense with Conn call-in show. And, I like that kind of music right there by old Lee Greenwood. And I have a suggestion for our listening audience. If you don't like to hear the national anthem, you don't like to hear Lee Greenwood or George Strait or something like that, I have a suggestion for you. There's a dial on your radio. Change the dad blame thing, because that's what you're going to hear when you listen to Common Sense with Conn. I don't make any apologies for being patriotic. Here we are back with Tony. We was talking about what happens when communism takes over in a nation. Some people in America, especially in the university system, they think communism may be a pretty good way to go. So we're here talking with Tony because his great-great-grandfather was in Taiwan when the Communist Party took over, and it didn't take them long to get rid of him. So, Tony, we're back with you.
Hey, Conn.
What? you got to watch me. I get stirred up over here and forget to let somebody else talk. So, and remind people, if you have a comment you want to call in, the number here is 773-1400. Call in and get in the conversation.
So yeah, whenever we talked back at the restaurant, and I told you the story, and I haven't mentioned too much about it on the radio, except it's really what happened. But when my mom went to go visit, and my grandfather wanted to go visit his father in China because he was executed over there by the Communist Party. I asked my mom, how's it that happened? Why did he not come to Taiwan? And what she told me kind of reminded me, how probably bad or serious it was. And what happened was he had to stay behind while he had my grandfather and the young generation, the kids, escape and run to Taiwan, while he stayed behind to make kind of things look like things are kind of going normal. Because if you weren't supporting the Communist Party and you snuck off, they were going to hunt you down.
Yeah.
So
probably kill all the survivors left there.
Yes. So he stayed behind. My great grandfather. He stayed behind, and to kind of make things look normal. But eventually, people hadn't seen certain family members for a long period of time, and then that's when they dragged him out to the streets and made it a public execution.
See, it's hard for us in America to get a grip on that kind of activity, that kind of government, that kind of control, that absolute unquestioned control. And that's what happened when the Communist Party took over. And it's happened in other countries since then, but Tony is telling the story it was his family. So that's a little bit different than me hearing about it somewhere. It was his family that happened to. The doctor that wrote the book, The Killing Field, he was there. He witnessed that. If you remember in Cambodia when the communists took over, I believe I'm right, they took everybody that was educated. If you could read and write, they killed them. And, they would shoot them, they'd do whatever. They finally got down to where it was cheaper to just tie their hands behind their back, put a plastic bag over the head, and suffocate them. That's got to not be a very pleasant way to die. And I guess they killed hundreds of thousands like that in the name of communism. So, I'm just really concerned about young people today that don't have a clue what communism is. And I think that we as parents and grandparents and teachers or whatever, we need to make a very concerted effort to explain to young people what communism is and what freedoms that we have here in this country, and try to give our young people some vague idea of the value of constitutional freedom in this republic that we live in.
Conn, communism, I know when I was taught in school, it talked about everybody working and everybody getting treated fairly and everybody sharing resources and goods. But what obviously history class or government class doesn't teach in that regard is the human nature part of it. I know many people have heard this. I've heard this before, and I believe this to be true. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. It does. And like I say, we have an obligation. Let me go back to the Bible just very briefly here. I can't quote any scriptures out of the Bible, but I can tell you what the meaning was. There's a scripture in the Bible that describes being the watchman on the wall. Well, the watchman on the wall is supposed to sound the watch cry when he sees danger coming. As I understand the scripture, it says that if you're the watchman and you sound the watch cry and the people don't heed the watch cry, the sin is upon their head. But if you don't sound the watch cry, the sin is on your head. So one thing the Common Sense with Conn show, I hope, does is I hope we sound the watch cry. We better be paying attention, folks, to what's happening in this country, because if we don't pay attention, there's not going to be a country left for us to talk about or talk in or with. So you got to watch me, Tony. I get stirred up here. I forget I've got a guest on the show that's supposed to be talking. So, anyway, I'm really enjoying having Tony here because he's, I think, bringing a little bit different knowledge to the subject of communism, and I think we sure better be listening. Go ahead, Tony. I apologize for butting in so much.
That's not a problem. Well, that's, I guess the most important part of the aspect of, for me, understanding what my great grandparents had to go through, and for the young generation to be able to survive. And luckily they had a place called Taiwan to escape to, and we're very fortunate for that. My grandfather's 103 years old now, and I would actually love to be able to go visit him because he's still alive. Talk to him about the experience.
That would be an experience. I believe we got a caller. Yes, caller, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Conn? This is Cal calling.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was listening to Tony. It's terrible what happened to. Is it the great-grandfather?
It's my mom's father's father. So it's only a few generations down now.
Few generations. I just wanted to ask you. You've been here in the United States, and you've done well with Dynasty Restaurant. I've been there several times. Matter of fact, I even won a gift certificate.
Oh, awesome!
And that was nice. Anyway, how do you look at politics? What's going on now? I mean, and as far as let me put it this way: you got the Democrats fighting against the Republicans fighting against the Democrats. They just passed the Senate tax bill there, and they got to go over that again. But then you have the news media, and you got a big split there. You got the far left, CNN and MSNBC. They're saying one thing. to make the presidency, look bad. And then you have Fox that's trying to help, I think trying to unite people.
And be truthful.
To be truthful. And just, I heard the song, to be proud to be an American and such. But in I heard you say you travel back to Taiwan now and then?
It's been about 10 years since I've been back to Taiwan, but yeah, I would like to go back and visit my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and then talk to him about his journey from China to Taiwan.
I see. Okay, but I was just curious from your perspective. How do you
on the current state of politics?
Current events here that's going on.
My opinion has always been, I really got started in politics in 2007, 2008, and fundamentally, when I look at any party or candidate or anything I really support, is I look to the Constitution as my guide.
Mm-hmm.
You can have somebody who is a Republican or a Democrat who can talk well. Hitler did that. He was a very good talker. But you have to look at their actions and things that they actually do, the things that they push. If you're talking about a congressman, you have to look at the bills that they write, the bills that they sponsor, and the things that they vote for. And I think that is one way that most people, and the easiest way that most people can contribute. The second, realistically, the thing that affects government and politics the most is having the local people actually getting involved in local politics. And that is probably the second easiest, but also the most effective change that any one person can do. On the federal level, it's much more harder. The competition is much more stiffer. I was actually a national delegate in 2012 in the Republican convention in the Republican Party, and I found how difficult it was trying to affect actual change, because the people that are in those positions already don't want certain changes to occur.
Well, we're seeing that right now with Donald Trump. The biggest problem he's got is the elite establishment that won't change.
Yes, but they want to keep the power that they had consolidated for themselves already, and that's something that I've seen personally. And it was an honor to go to the national convention, but it was sad to not be able to do what I could for the people in the state of Texas, in our county, whenever I went.
Well, and Tony brings up a good point. I think we may have visited about it before, but we got the primary season coming up here pretty quick, and the time to change your representative, your senator, whoever it is, don't wait till the general election. Let's study the issues in the primary, and then let's vote in the primary for the one who we think is the best candidate. And I would encourage people that want to get involved, look at the voting record of the present congressman, senator, county commissioner, whoever it is that's running for office. Look at how they have been voting and what they voted for. And secondly, I would say, look at who their sponsors are. Look at where their money comes from. Because very often a politician, he is not beholden to the people that elected him. He's beholden to the people that furnish the money to do all the advertisement and all that kind of stuff. So very often politicians are bought. If somebody gives them $1 zillion, where do you think their loyalty lies? So
I would say that is definitely true, Conn, especially if the people are not contacting their representatives or their congressman or their commissioner. If the politicians, they get phone calls, they get letters, they get, they know that the people's watching. Yeah, the email. Yeah, exactly. If they know that they're being watched and their constituents want them to do the right thing, it's very hard for even lobbyists to make the representative or the politician to do what they want, because fundamentally the congressman or the politician is going to lose his position of power if the people don't reelect him for the next.
They're protecting, very often they're protecting their position, and their position is not just one of a salaried employee. It may be a position of power, more, and maybe the power is worth more to them than the salary, if you will. So, and we definitely have some power-hungry politicians. Look at Hillary Clinton. If you want to see an example of what I'm talking about, just take a look and listen to Hillary or Bill. And they're not the only ones. I mean, there's some of the Republican Party just like that, I guess. But
I was watching the news, and I was saying, they finally passed this tax bill in the Senate about 2:00 in the morning, but not one Democrat. And I said to myself, now there at least got to be 2, 3, maybe 4 that would have gone along with that, But I guess because you have certain ones in power that've been there, just like Tony said, you better do as I say, do.
Right. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, do as I say, not as. But anyway, they just seem to be, because I said to myself, you got to have at least 2 or 3 Democrats that could have come across and said, hey, this is going to help the people in my state. I know it is.
Hey, Cal.
But they're so scared.
Well, they are, and they're scared of losing that power in that position. But, Cal, save some of those thoughts, because you're going to be on the hot seat next Saturday. So you better save something to talk about.
I always have plenty. Okay.
Right now, Eric is shaking his fist at me. We got to try to pay for this program some way.
Pay for it. Okay. Well, it's good talking with you, Tony.
Thank you, Cal.
Good talk to you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. I'm not real sure how patriotic that song is, but it sure is American music. Old American music, but it's from America. It's not from some other country. Okay, folks, we still got Tony with us, and I would like to ask Tony, because he's of the younger generation than I am. Now, I think everybody knows that I'm older than dirt, but so we need to have some perspective from younger people. Tony, what does your peer group think about the difference between American capitalism and communist? What does your
honestly, it's kind of hard and sad to say, really, but I think most people in my age group are just now starting families and things like that, so they don't seem to really care too much about politics. And I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I feel like, if you talk to anybody about politics, it's not cool, it's not fun, and nobody's involved in politics because they're too busy working all the time, trying to provide a living for their family, that they just assume that everything would be fine and dandy without them being involved.
So it begs the question to me, what responsibility do we older folks have to try to engage in conversation with your peer group? And I know that's not easy to do, because your peer group, would rather talk about rap music or The Walking Dead on TV, or I don't know what they listen to, but so how do we, the older generation, how do we affect younger people? How do you do that? I have a hard time talking to my grandkids, let alone, but I do try when I have a chance to engage younger people.
I would assume, the grandkids probably have, when you talk to them, yeah, it has more impact than you probably think it does. And I think really the solution to not letting our republic fall apart is education, is talking about the subject, not being afraid to talk about it. And
Well, I'm sitting back here in the background, and you just said a key word. You said republic.
And another thing we need to reject, if you will, and I've heard this all of my life since I was a little kid. Two things I never talk about is politics and religion. Well, I wonder where that cliche was started. I wonder who started that saying. Do you think it was George Washington? I don't think so. Do you think it was Ronald Reagan? I don't think so. Could that saying have been started in Beijing or Moscow? I don't think it was started in Texas by some old country boy out here in the mesquite brush. But how many times have you heard people say that?
Oh, I mean, plenty of times.
And I asked a question when somebody says that. I asked the question, what affects your life every day that you live in this country? Politics. What's going to affect your life when you cross that old big river up there? It's going to be religion. So what do you mean you don't talk about politics or religion? The two most important things in your life has got to be religion and politics.
Yes, it's funny you mention that. A lot of people they don't like talking about politics and religion or money. And this is one of my brother's sayings. Kind of funny. The reason why is because every time he does, he gets an argument with somebody. But the thing is, we have to exercise our First Amendment. There's a reason why it's there. And without discussion and without debate, and sometimes without, arguing and passionate debate is what I would call it. If you have passion debate or just debate at all, discussion, you can come to conclusions and ideas to solutions. If somebody thinks, communism sounds like a great idea, you say, well, here are the reasons why it's good, here are the reasons why it's bad, and historically this is what has happened and why it's happened. Once you can get to lay out all those out, that person will have a deeper understanding of why communism, while it's idealistic, it won't work because of human nature, the way we are. Our republic is established because it was designed to chain down the size of the government and to chain down the amount of power any one person can have. And it's there for a reason, and you have to understand that reason.
Well, and I just saw, I think in the paper, or maybe it's on Fox News, there is a group called the LGBT Revolutionary something or other to destroy capitalism. I would certainly engage those folks in a debate anytime they want to do it. But now I will not engage them in an argument. Someone said once, do you know the difference between an argument and a debate? A debate is when you accept someone else's point, or at least recognize it, and then you make a point. An argument is when you wait for him to shut up so you can talk. Well, and if you watch debates on TV, on the news, or wherever it's at, you watch the liberal. What does the liberal do? They talk fast and loud and quick, and they never shut up. So you can't ever get a point in, because they filibuster the conversation. So I'm not going to talk to somebody like that. I'm not going to waste my time. If they want to filibuster and never shut up and never recognize a point, I'm not going to waste my time with them.
I hope people that are like that, I hope that's and I feel like hopefully that's a small portion of the population. And I think with just talking to average ordinary people, I think most people are willing and more than happy to learn. Just sometimes it does require a little bit of patience, because some people's been raised since they were kids on living off the government or things like that, and it takes time to teach people why it's not a good thing. I have employees where when we have lunch on our lunch breaks. We talk about politics and things, and there's a lot of things that was, in a way, I feel like indoctrinated to them either by their parents or even sometimes in school that they have to unlearn. We talk about guns are dangerous. So in school we were taught that. If we weren't taught that in school, who's going to have to unteach that? The parents,
right?
Other family members, friends. Somebody has to unteach that.
Well, in communist countries, they, I guess, like a conservative, they just pick them up and put them in a re-education camp. And they re-educate them, or if they can't re-educate them, just shoot them in the back of the head. And we don't want to go that, nothing like that. But by the same token, back to the Watchmen on the wall. If Tony, Conn, Cal, whoever, if we don't recognize that we are the watchmen on the wall, we have got to sound the watch cry. And sometimes it's not easy to do, sometimes it's not pleasant to do, but we have an obligation to be the watchman on the wall and sound the watch cry. Because if somebody doesn't, this country is going to go away, and we don't want to see that. Okay, Tony, I have really enjoyed the conversation.
It was a pleasure being on there,
and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And we'd like to have you back sometime. And anyone else out there, if you want to talk about how great communism could be and how we could all live equally and all that kind of stuff, well, give me a call. It's probably going to be a pretty short conversation because I'm not going to have a whole lot of patience for your position if you're a pro-communist. Since I'm a pro-capitalist, or I'm not sure what you call me, but anyway, I love this country, and I love freedom, and I love our Constitution, and I love people that love it. And Tony's one of them. He came here. He's not an immigrant, but his parents were. He's a first-generation American. I think that's correct there.
Yep.
And what a good one he is making. I mean, because of his background, he has at least heard the stories of what the lack of freedom is like. So I think maybe you can't really enjoy freedom unless you can contemplate the lack of it. What's the old saying? You never miss the water till the well goes dry. Well, you probably never miss freedom until you don't have it.
I would definitely agree with you on that.
But the problem there is, after the well goes dry, where do you get your water?
It's too late.
After freedom is gone, how do you get it back? It ain't easy to gain freedom in a country or a society. It's not an easy thing to do. So we had better protect it while we got it, because it could go away. And I, for one, sure would miss it, and I think Tony would too, and I think Cal would, and I think old Lobo up there in Copper's Cove would probably miss it. Raymond and Temple would miss it, and Rick and Salado would miss it. So there's quite a few of us that, we kind of value freedom. We're kind of proud of being American, a Southerner and a Texan.
Hey, Conn, know what's funny is when my family members in Taiwan, they live in Taiwan, and Taiwan still has a lot of the old perception of guns and stuff are dangerous. So it's actually outlawed in Taiwan to own a weapon unless you're with the law enforcement or the military. Anytime I have family members coming down to visit, they always want to go shoot guns, right? The funny thing is when we take them out and shoot guns, they take photos and stuff, and they post it on their social media page. And people in Taiwan always respond with a, that's so dangerous, or, this is so cool but so dangerous, because, they're not accustomed to it. And I have a picture on my Facebook of me and my daughter. And my daughter, she's 11 now, but she was 4 years old at the time when I first taught her how to shoot a rifle. And it was a little .22 Cricket, and we would shoot firewood at. And when my family members saw that in Taiwan, said, "Oh, why is your daughter shooting guns?" But you know what? She knows how to handle a gun.
But Tony, in Taiwan, that's what happens when you've been indoctrinated.
That's correct. Exactly. So, the reason why I did that was so that, they could see and they could understand, what weapons and guns aren't dangerous. And, I'll know that my kids will.
Well, and God bless you for doing that, because we need more people to do that, not less. I think we got to go try to pay some bills, folks, so y'all hang in there. We'll be back after 1 o'clock. Okay, folks, here we are back on the air on KTEM 1400 on your AM dial, and this is the Common Sense with Conn call-in talk show. Now, admittedly, the NFL players may not like that song you just listened to, but that's okay. They probably don't listen to this show anyway. But I kind of like it. At any rate, y'all call in. The call-in number here is 254-773-1400. That's 773-1400. If you got something to say, well, call in and let us hear what it is. Cal made a good point the other day, and I was talking to him up there. He said all week long we listened to, Lynn Woolley, Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, TV news, stuff like that. But you don't have very much time to comment or to give your view of the subject. But you can on this show right here. That's what this show is all about. If you want to, he said, may want to share your comments and thoughts, and I'll put down and vent your anger, your frustration, or your whatever it may be. So just don't call in and threaten anybody, nothing like that. And but other than that, if you got something to say, well, call in and we'll listen to you, and probably agree with you most of the time. I really enjoy this show. I sure do. I enjoy hearing from the good folks out there. And all that, I enjoy trying to do our part to preserve the freedom and liberty we have here, because if we're not careful, it's going to go away. And like Tony and I were just talking about, you don't miss that water till the well goes dry. But after the well goes dry, it's dry. It's gone. So we don't want to see freedom go away. We want to protect that freedom and that liberty. And I think that we can protect it best by talking to young people, talking to the 20-something-year-olds, because currently a lot of them are in college and they're being taught by some left-wing, liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call them. I better watch my mouth here. But some of those people that are teaching our young people, they've never been on the horse. They never got throwed and never had to get back on. I've been on a horse, got throwed, and I got back on. I've been in a bullpen, got all busted up, but I'd get back in there tomorrow.
Yeah, that was recent too. Yeah, just about a year ago.
Well, I'm trying. I about healed up, so I'm trying to forget that little instant there. But but at any rate, another thing you're seeing, and I'd like for Koby to read. She has a list that Cal provided for us, a list of the 10 things that the Communist Party, the 10 goals to take over the United States. So I'm going to let Koby read some of those, and we'll kind of discuss them. If y'all want to talk about them, we'll call in. The number here is 773-1400. Go ahead, Koby.
All right. So, I think there's about 10 of them. We'll read a couple of them and then maybe talk about them. The first one says, corrupt the young, get them away from religion, get them interested in sex, make them superficial, destroy their ruggedness. I think that's very interesting language. The second is get control of all means of publicity, so the media. The third is get people's minds off of their government by focusing their attention on things like athletics, sexy books, and other trivialities. And the fourth one is divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no importance.
Well, maybe read those again. How many of those are taking place right now as we speak? are we paying attention to what's going on in our country? Because some of those things, goals of the Communist Party, they have been successful.
Well, yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, we were talking about this in the truck on the way up here, right? The one of the first goals is destroy their ruggedness.
Yes.
You don't see a whole lot of manly men anymore.
No.
That's not a thing. Kind of the opposite.
Well, you've got the LGBT thing and all these other things out there that we're destroying manliness. To quote Arnold Schwarzenegger, we're now producing girly men, not men. And who's going to fight the next war? Who's going to defend the country? Who's going to defend the family down, or the neighbor down the street? Where is the defense going to come from? At any rate,
a bunch of hipsters with man buns. That's what it's looking like.
Well, and look at TV. Look at the programs on TV. Let me give you an example. A fellow black rap singer just won a Grammy Award. Now, I just thought on the news because I don't watch that kind of stuff. But anyway, he won a Grammy Award. So they gave the lyrics to the song, one of his songs, on Fox News. And I was amazed. The lyrics of the song that helped win him the Grammy, every other word was the N word. Boy, I almost had a slip of my tongue there for a minute. Every other word was the N word, and if it wasn't the N word, it was the F word or the MF word. And this won him a Grammy. Where are we headed? What road are we traveling when we glorify and make this man a multi-millionaire for producing songs like that? I wouldn't call it a song, but anyway, how many young people listen to that kind of rap music? There was one years ago called Cop Killer Rap, rapped about killing cops. There was another one I heard about, kill the women slower so they'll scream longer. Do we have young people listening to that kind of stuff? If we have young people listening to that, if one of my children, when they were smaller, if they had listened to something like that, I'd have warmed their britches up where they wouldn't have sat down for about a month. I didn't put up with that. Now, I guess I was a horrible, bad father. I don't know, but I got some awful good kids, so I guess I didn't do too bad. Well,
it's interesting. One of these goals of the Communist Party is to corrupt the young.
Yeah.
So, in very subtle things like language, we're being corrupted. That song that you were just talking about, and a lot of the popular music today, it's very vulgar, very profane, and its subject matter is gross.
Nasty.
And it's so ironic because, you have that, and that's what's popular, that kind of music, and you watch the music videos, and those things are very popular, but at the same time, you have all of these people being called out for sexual harassment, and that's such a crisis. So if sexual harassment in our nation is such a crisis, but all of our music, all of our entertainment, all of our successful entertainers, what do they make their money on?
Well, exactly.
That's what they make their money on.
We're accepting this Grammy Award winner with this kind of language and this kind of songs, at the same time punishing people because
someone from 40 years ago comes up and says, oh, hey, I think this guy made a rude comment.
Yeah, or maybe he walked by me and slapped me on the behind at the water fountain or something, and we're ready to crucify him. But then we turn on the radio listening to...
And we sing along. We sing along and we love it.
Yeah. It's what... I keep saying, this road that we're on, what's the destination of this road that America is traveling? Where does it take us? Where are we going? What's the end result? What is the goal? What's our destiny if we continue to do what we're doing right now? And, to me, it's shocking that some college professors call for white genocide, or some college professors call for communism, or all this kind of radical stuff in the universities. And then you look at these these goals of the Communist Party, that's not something that's going to happen in the future. It is happening today as we speak, folks. Just wake up and look around. It's happening now. My goodness.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of these that we read, get people's minds off of their government by focusing their attention on athletics, sexy books, and other trivialities. So you think about that. The majority of people, y'all mentioned this earlier, they don't want to talk about politics or religion, but they can talk all day and all night about the latest football game, right? So that is accomplished. Sexy books, you think about 50 Shades of Grey and what a phenomenon that has been in our society, right? So that one is accomplished. And other trivialities. What did we just see on the news about, what's her name? The lady who made the pie.
Yeah.
But like that was on national news, a picture of this woman's pie. Literally everyone in the country is making a pie, but for whatever reason on national news we're hearing about this woman's pie because whoever saw the picture and thought that it was too good to be true. Well, and that's on national news.
Well, and Ivanka Trump's high heels.
Yeah, Melania, the first lady.
It was on the news how long her high heels were. Who in the cat hair out there cares about how long her high heels are? For crying out, is that all we got to think about?
Or how often do you turn on the news and you are hearing about this latest celebrity's breakup? Who cares?
Yeah.
Why as a nation, as a whole, why are we so focused on these things that have absolutely no relevance in our lives?
I read the headlines of a column years and years ago, some lady columnist wrote, and the headline was, "Did I need to know that?" And that is, it really brings up a good question. Like one reason I appreciate so much the callers on this show. The callers that call into this show, I don't think I've had one call in and give us vivid details of his last appendix operation or his last ingrowing toenail or something. We talk serious business on this show, and I enjoy that. And that, of course, that's what I expect our callers to do. And I'm not sure that we're going to change the world with the Common Sense with Conn show, but by Ganny, we're doing our part. You got another little goal there of the Communist Party?
I wanted to let you know that Greg's watching you on Facebook.
Who?
Greg.
Oh, from the DAV? Oh, okay, Greg. I hope you're listening. Greg is with the DAV in Nolanville, and he's a good guy. That's Greg Dunham. And if y'all get to Nolanville and you want to talk to Greg Dunham, he is at 859-620-0879. And if you're a disabled vet, you need to know Greg Dunham at the Nolanville DAV. Doggone, they're just good people. They help vets all the time, and I just can't say enough good things about them. But another fellow that's just a good guy is our county commissioner here with Precinct 3. His name is Bill Schuman, and I just want y'all to remember that name because I don't know what he might run for someday. He might want to run for governor or president, or I don't care what he runs for. I'm going to support him because he's just a good guy. So y'all kind of remember that name. At any rate, back to the subject at hand. No, I think Eric is threatening me with over here, so we got to talk about sponsors. Okay, folks, here we are back on the Common Sense with Conn show. I've always come up here with several notes to talk about, and then I get involved in conversations with good people, and I forget about my notes, and I have done that again today, as usual. At any rate, I wanted to talk about chain migration and what that's doing to our country. Just one example. 22% of inmates in the California prisons are illegal aliens. 22%. What does it cost the American taxpayer to house a prisoner? Years ago, I heard it was $60,000 a year. So I don't know what it is now, but I bet it's not any cheaper than $60,000 a year. So what does that cost the American taxpayer? Back to Trump wanting to build a wall. Some people don't see the value of building the wall. I dad blame sure do. We have got to do something to stop the flow of illegal people, illegal drugs, illegal anything else. We're going to lose our country just because we're diluting it with people with other values, other cultures. I've said before, if you've got a jug of sulfuric acid and you want to get rid of it, what do? Pour water in it, dilute it. You keep diluting it and it goes away. That's the way our Judeo-Christian American society is. If you want to destroy America and our Judeo-Christian society, just dilute it. Keep pouring other people in here. We got a caller that's going to tell me what else is going to do. Yes, caller, go ahead.
Hello, Conn. This is Rick.
Yes, sir.
I enjoyed last hour a lot.
Well, good.
And you know, it reminded me back in the 90s, I believe it was. There was this bunch of people, young people in China, that protested for democracy in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
And they were like ran over by tanks and shot and stuff like that.
Yeah, so much for freedom under communism.
And if I'm not mistaken, Bill Clinton went there and gave a speech once and never even mentioned the massacre at Tiananmen Square.
Well, as you can tell in past shows, I think, probably Rick, I'm not a real big fan of Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton either.
Neither am
I.
And then, okay, go ahead.
Well, I just wish people could wake up to who and what Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, what are they? What did they do to this country? I contend that the biggest enemy we have ever faced was not the German army under Nazism. It was not the Communist Party or Russians under communism. The biggest enemy we have ever faced in this country was one Bill and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. I think they've done more to destroy freedom in this country than any foreign power has ever done.
Yeah, the enemy of the United States of America is, we have many enemies, and they're very subtle and deceptive. And there was another thing that recently happened. You know, communism must be really great, because this poor guy in North Korea was driving along the border, and he decided to deliberately crash his car into the ditch, run out of the car, try to make it to South Korea. Well, the soldiers on the border shot at him and hit him a couple of times, and they even went into the demilitarized zone to try to catch him. But then the guy made it to South Korea, and the South Korean soldiers carried him back in, and now he's in the hospital. And he not only was he shot, but he suffered from malnutrition. He had intestinal parasites, and who knows what else was wrong with that guy.
Well, now, Rick, you must really be mistaken. Are you sure he wasn't running into North Korea?
Well, I don't know if they'd let you run in there either.
You probably run into a 308 round or something, But that's a good point. How many North Koreans would love to get out of there? Like Tony's great-grandfather. I guess most of the family escaped to Taiwan, and that's how some of them wound up over here. But I really wanted people to hear his story, because it puts communism and American freedom in perspective.
Yeah, his great-grandfather must have been not just a great-grandfather, but a great man, because he knew he wasn't going to make it, but he made sure that the women and children and as many people as could be got out of there without anyone knowing it.
Yeah, see, he was laying cover for the rest of them.
And it's just like during Nazi Germany when people were risking their own lives because they knew it was illegal to hide Jewish people. But they would risk their own lives, and they ended up going to the concentration camps along with the Jews when they were captured doing that.
Yeah, I saw a thing on, I guess on War Story with Oliver Dorth. It's about the Doolittle Raiders, and those pilots got on those planes with the weapons that they dropped on Japan. They knew that they couldn't fly back. They knew when they passed the line of no return, they knew they would have to crash in China. They knew they couldn't get back to American bases. And what happened to the Chinese that helped them? You know what happened to the Chinese that helped the American pilots that crashed over there? The Chinese, they took the ones that helped those American pilots, they executed them and buried them. They burned them and buried them, and they buried them alive. You know, we can't comprehend that kind of stuff in this country because we've never experienced it here on American soil. But
hey, before I go, let me comment on your thing about chain migration real quick.
Yes, sir.
I agree with Lynn Woolley's co-host that filled in for him yesterday. Let California secede from the Union and become part of Mexico. They deserve it.
Well, yeah, I will not grieve at their leaving, I'll tell you. You know, but California better watch what they wish for.
All right, I'm going to let you go, Conn.
Okay, thank you, Rick, for the call. Well, he brings up a good subject. These people that hate America and want to secede from America, or let them go. I'd say to anybody, if you don't honor this American flag, you don't like the national anthem, goodbye. Get on that boat and take off. I'm sure some of us will help gather up a little money to pay for your ticket. You know, if you don't like to play football in America and hear that national anthem and watch that flag, get on the boat. They may have an NFL football team in Uganda or in Zimbabwe or somewhere. Just go ahead on. If you think it's so horrible over here, oh, shut up, Conn. I'm fixing to get stirred up here. But I have no sympathy for those people who hate America. If you hate it, leave. There's other countries you can go to.
Oh, but see, the problem with that is that would take effort on their part, right? That would take personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And that is not something that our society is, very strong in.
You know, I might remind people, the anti-gun people, anti-American people, you know what happened in Rwanda here about 2 or 3, 4 years ago?
Tell me.
What happened in Rwanda was that they got no guns. All they had was hoes and machetes and axes. The Tutus killed 100,000 Hutus because they were Hutus instead of Tutus. And they didn't take guns. They used hoes and axes and stuff like that. So, if you think America's so horrible, move to Rwanda.
Get a little bit of perspective.
Yeah, if you don't like guns, move to Rwanda. Here's a caller. Yes, caller, go ahead.
Hello, Conn. This is Greg Dunham with Disabled American Veterans. How are you today?
Well, I was just talking about you a while ago. Was your ears ringing?
Well, I heard it, as a matter of fact. I've been watching you on Facebook.
Oh,
Woo, hello.
Okay.
Yeah, I just happened to have a little time today. My Saturdays have been crazy for this last month. This last month at the DAV, we've had all kinds of activities going on in November. We had the 5K in San Antonio, which I was the chairperson for. We had the Veterans Day events all over the state of Texas, which kept us really busy. And I guess our chapter's getting some notoriety. We've had the State Commander can drop by our chapter and visit with us during Veterans Day weekend. So we've been really busy in November. And my Saturday's been filled up, and I just have not had time to get in, except for one day, and I just couldn't get in. You're so popular, your one line's busy.
Well, well, we do have some good callers, Greg, but we always like to hear from you and bring us an update on what the DAV in Nolaville is doing to help our veterans. And we appreciate all of your efforts along that line.
Well, I appreciate the recognition. For this month, on the 16th of December, we will have our members meeting at noon and then open to the public at 1:30 until about 6 o'clock. As you know, the chapter itself is named the Harry L. Axline Jr. chapter. He was a World War II hero, and his widow and family will be up for that luncheon on the 16th. So if anybody would like to come out and meet the Axline family, come on out. We'll have some brisket, some chicken, some other good barbecue stuff out there, and we just love to have you come out.
Boy.
Also, preceding the meeting, we're going to be in the Nolanville Christmas Day Parade. That's a huge parade. So, come on in to see the Nolanville Christmas Parade at noon.
You think folks will be here from worldwide to participate in that parade, do you, Greg?
Well,
I bet it's a lot of fun.
I'm an international traveler, so yes, I'll be there.
There you go. That counts for something.
Speaking of that line, as the commander of the DAV, Chapter 22, I can't take a political partisan view, but as an airline pilot, I have traveled all over the world. I've been to Communist China and to Taiwan, Free China, the Republic of China. And I can tell you there is a stark difference in attitudes. If anybody believes that capitalism is not alive in China, Red China, you're sadly mistaken. It's the little people that are told to be the communist. The rich people get to run the rule, as we say. So if you want communism, that's what it is. It's just the rich and poor.
Yeah, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I thought under communism, you're supposed to all be equal and all be happy and lovely and everything like that. That's what the propaganda says.
Well, if you believe that, I've got something I can say.
Okay, Greg, we appreciate your call. And
okay.
You be careful out there.
All right. Thank you, Conn.
I'm going to turn it back over to Koby here. Let her talk some more.
Yeah. All right. So we've got an email from Cal. He wanted to talk a little bit about our First Lady and what an incredible person she is. He mentions, she speaks 5 languages and she's a very accomplished person. And it's so interesting how she is continually crucified by the media, by the left. And, how hard they try to disgrace her and to humiliate her when she truly is an incredible person and has done a great job.
Well, and it reminds me of in Russia they used to put out what they call perestroika. And is that what our news media has come down to? Are they just in the propaganda business? Like talking about Ivanka's high heels and what dress she wore and what, just Mickey Mouse trivia on a scavenger hunt trying to find any little Mickey Mouse thing they can say about Donald Trump and his wife.
Well, and let me tell you, I get so tired, high school, college, the workplace, gossip never ends, right? It's kind of human nature. So I get so tired of hearing about, what this person wore or what this person said in real life. I don't want to turn on the news and hear that same thing.
Well, right, and back to the comment the columnist made, did I need to know that? Do I need to know how tall her high heel shoes are? Why do I need to hear that on national news? I could care less, and I don't know why any American would want to know that kind of trivia. Is there somebody mindless enough to stay tuned to the news in order to hear about her high heels or some other kind of trivia like that?
Well, and what is so funny is, when I was in high school, I thought, this is so ridiculous, the rumor mill and everything. And I thought, well, once I get out of high school, when we're all adults, that will end. It didn't. college, you hear the same thing. The workplace, you hear the same thing. And on national news, you hear the same thing. It's just like high school. It never ends.
Well, and, Eric's over there shaking his head, and it's true even among 40, 50, 60-year-old people. You try to have a serious conversation with somebody, and not everyone, but very often the fellow, he'll change subject real quick. Now if you want to talk about a football game or something, and I ask a lot of people, how will the score in that football game influence and affect the rest of your life? Tell me how that's going to affect the rest of your life. I believe we got a caller. Yes, caller, go ahead. Are you there, caller?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
This AC.
Yes, sir. Well, I thought it was somebody on the phone there, AC, and it's just AC.
It's just AC, that's all.
You go ahead on.
Don't claim to be anything, never was. But here's the deal. I really enjoyed your show today and every Saturday. And you play the national anthem. That's the high point of it. And I really appreciate that. I've got to ask you, Conn, who selected Guthrie's song earlier, just a few minutes ago?
Our board manager over there, Mr. Eric, he's guilty of that.
But he's guilty, all right. He's either unaware of the facts. In the 30s, that was the national anthem of the Communist Party USA.
What was?
This land is your land.
Huh. Well, we didn't know that.
On the front of his guitar, he's got stamped out there, written out there in his hand, "This instrument kills capitalist."
Well, we're going to have to lay that at Eric's feet.
Good job, Eric.
Well, like they say in college, the kids, they look it up,
Yeah.
One sentence in there, it says, he saw a sign to keep out, but on the back it didn't say anything. So what the heck? Just go on in.
Yeah, there you go.
No walls. They don't want any walls. They don't want any rules that regulate them. No, I just want to, who in the heaven's name selected that?
And you did research on it.
It's that dadgum, Eric. We're going to just have to beat him severely about the head and shoulders with a stick.
I know he's just unaware of it. It's,
The funny thing about the song is I had just been saying before I played it that I read about it, and that I had read that Woody Guthrie thought it was a more realistic, patriotic song compared to God Bless America that he felt was a little bit complacent. I guess what realistic in his mind meant was more communist.
In a communist mind, we're all wrong. Capitalism is evil. My God, there's profit involved. Can you imagine that? Well, I didn't call to beat up on the show because I love your show, as you know.
I know you do.
And I enjoy all the callers. But, boy, I just said, and do I need to call? Maybe somebody else call. Surely there's some old guys in my age group that know that. My God, he was a communist. A card-carrying, sure enough, supported the Communist Party.
Well, see, and that's the subject of the show today, AC, is communism is getting more acceptable, and that's sad to me.
Well, I enjoyed your guest. He's a personal friend of mine, and of course we've supported his restaurant there. He's a good. He's a card-carrying member of the same party I adhere to.
Yes, he was. He was at the national convention.
He was a delegate to the convention. You bet.
He's pretty serious Republican.
That's right.
Might I add something?
Oh.
I think also that communism and socialism is so disguised in so many different ways. Particularly this piece of music is an example of it. But there's like a ton of conservative groups on Facebook. And all of those people, for the most part, are liberals. They're just wolves in sheep clothing. And they're inundating us with information that we think is coming from a conservative source, and yet it really isn't.
Well, but that's true in politics. We're seeing people that are Republicans in name only. We're seeing people that talk a lot about freedom and then go vote for, for the other side. So
The other side, well put, because you know what the Democrat Party has evolved to, and I'll let somebody else come up with the opinion. You know mine.
Well, you fix get
I'm
me.
going to let somebody else call in. I know you only have one line, thanks to that gracious radio station. Two lines would be helpful. Hey, see y'all later.
Okay, thank you, AC. Well, I think we're going to have to pay a few bills around here. We're going to turn back over to Eric and let him pay a few bills. Okay, folks, let's talk a little bit about Goodwin Farm and Ranch Supply. The Goodwins are just a nice family that have raised their kids to be impressive, outstanding, patriotic young adults. It was truly a pleasure to have an intelligent conversation with an educated young person. That's their 19-year-old son out. Their family own and operate 2 feed stores. One in Moody. It's at 108th Street there in Moody, and that phone number is 254-853-8039. The second one is here in Temple out in the industrial. It's in Temple at 3600 Range Road. That's 3600 Range Road, just off of Loop 363. And that phone number is 254-773-8840. Now, they carry a wide variety of feed, different kind of brands to choose from for your equine, I guess that's horses, livestock, wildlife, and pet needs, as well as traditional farm and ranch supply. So they got the feed. Just go by there and tell them what you need, and they'll try to get it for you. Both stores are open Monday through Friday, 8 until 6 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. Their website, if you need it, is www.goodwinfarmandranch.com. That's www.goodwinfarmandranch.com. Give them a try. Okay, folks, let's talk a little bit about Jack Hilliard Materials. They're out there at 12495 Reed Lake Loop in Temple. That's out there just past Academy. They handle all kind of rocks, big rocks, little rocks, gravel, road base, pea gravel, sand, whatever it is you need, they got it out there. Give old Hector a call at 254-982-4122. That's 982-4122. And also now they have dozers and excavators, and they can build you a stock pond or a road or whatever it is you want to build. And they got all kind of rocks to put on top of it when they get through. Give old Hector a call out there at 982-4122. Okay, good morning, or good evening, I should say, ladies and gentlemen. How are y'all doing out there in listening land today? This is KTEM 1400 on your radio AM dial. And this right here is the Common Sense with Conn call-in talk show. So if y'all are listening out there in the listening land, feel free to call in. The phone number here to call in is 254-773-1400. Y'all feel free to call in and give me some of your thoughts. This show is not about Conn. This show is about y'all out there in the listening land. If you have something to say, pick up the phone and call us. I'm happy to announce that today we have a guest on our show. Tony is here, and I have asked Tony to come in and visit with us a little bit about what happens when the Communist Party takes over a country. We had a caller not long ago from a student at A&M, and he made the comment that kind of disturbed me. He made the comment, I hope I'm quoting him right, that his professors at A&M were telling him that America has nothing to fear from communism because it can never take hold in America. Can't ever happen. Well, I reminded him that there's a fellow in New York City named Bill de Blasio that is the mayor of the largest city in this country. And unless I'm mistaken, he's a card-carrying, genuine, bona fide communist. Bernie Sanders ran for president, and a lot of people supported him. What is Bernie Sanders? Well, he's a socialist. Extreme socialism is communism. But at any rate, for there's so many of you out there in listening land that you may never have been taught what communism is and what it does when it takes over. So we have Tony with us today, and we're going to let Tony kind of explain to us some of the dangers of communism. During the Republican convention, there was a young lady outside in the crowd that was burning an American flag. I'll never forget that. She was burning the American flag, kneeling down on the ground there, and the announcer announced that she was part of the American Revolutionary Communist Party. And I thought, here she is burning an American flag.
And nobody was there.
And Floyd, I can't help but butt in just a little bit. We hear a lot of the word hero thrown about people. We got lots of supposed to be heroes, but now Mr. Williston is a hero. He ran out there barefooted with his shooting iron, and he stopped that guy. Some real smart, educated idiot columnist made the statement, well, he didn't stop the shooting. What do you mean he didn't stop the shooting? He shot the guy. Of course he stopped the shooting. After you shoot the guy drops his gun, he stopped the killing. Now, he can't resurrect the dead, but he dadgum sure saved what might have been killed next.
He sure did. He saved a lot of lives.
He had a ton of weapons in his vehicle, plus explosives, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And he was headed someplace else.
Yeah, he was going somewhere else to kill more, probably the next church he could find. So
next women.
Anybody thinks Mr. Williston is not a hero, I think he was, and I know you do too.
I do too, and I think anybody that would have stood up to the guy would have been a hero, but none of them wanted to even defend their wives or their kids, and that's the way it is with so many people. I bet that I'm probably one of the few at church on Sunday that has got some way to defend himself.
Well,
and
hey Floyd, it may be one of those churches that doesn't allow any kind of firearms in it, and there's a lot of churches that do that. They don't want firearms in their house.
I know it, and that's the church's fault.
Well, it is, and the pastor of those kind of churches, they're not facing reality.
No, they're not. And they're not doing what they should be doing as Christian men. And one of the things that we're to do as Christians is defend our women. And one thing that I've always been taught all my life, my mama taught me to be a man, defend women.
Well, and here I got a question of the day that I was going to ask. So I'm going to ask it real quick, Floyd, and you can help. Are we doing our part to save freedom? I mean us individually, not as a group, but us individually. Are we doing our part to save freedom? You don't have a radio show. You don't, but you're doing your part to save freedom. And are all the rest of us? Are we doing our part? Are we standing up for something, or what are we doing? Now, Eric's telling me we got 3 minutes left on this show. And I want to ask one more question before the end of the show. I saw a fella flying a Stars and Bars flag not long ago. And it brings to mind, and people said, oh, that's horrible, that's terrible, awful bad, I got a question for you. What are you the most comfortable looking at? A rebel flag on a flagpole or the hammer and sickle flag on the flagpole?
Yeah.
Which would you rather see flying out in your front yard? Which would you rather see?
They don't say much about the hammer and sickle.
No, but but people, I don't think people understand what the hammer and sickle flag is. But there is a lot of criticism about the Stars and Bars. The Stars and Bars, and I'm not, that was part of our history. And for us to destroy monuments, our history, etc., what are we doing to ourselves? Because are we going to replace that Stars and Bars flag with a hammer and sickle flag? Is that what we want to do?
Looks like that they want to. It does look like they want to.
Well, I just don't understand people's mentality, Floyd. Maybe when you think about it and sleep on it tonight, maybe you can tell me next Saturday what's in people's brain.
Well, I think the ruggedness of America needs to come back. I think we need to start, whatever we're doing wrong, we need to quit doing it. Because putting them in them government schools is one thing.
Well,
and get them out of them government schools.
And we're doing it at home, Floyd. Listen to the commercial about seat belts. The little boy comes on, Mommy, when are we going to the store? Mommy, 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 Mommy. What do you think a 5-year-old kid in the car learns when he hears that commercial? What do you think that young person learns? They learn to do the same thing. Mommy, I want a candy bar. When are we going to the store? Mommy, 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 Mommy. The way to produce men, Floyd, is at home. When they don't start when they're 25 years old, you start when they're 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's when you start. Get them out of them government schools as quick as you can.
Well, people today didn't have my mother. So I think we're just about to the end of the show, folks.
All right, brother. Be a good boy.
Floyd, you be careful out there.
All right.
One last thing.
Tony just messaged and he said, we're watering the tree of liberty.
Well, I hope we are. We're trying. Bless Tony's heart. Well, we're trying to preserve freedom on this show, folks. I hope y'all enjoy it. I enjoy having it, and I enjoy your comments and your calls. And we're going to have Koby back on here, and she's going to finish what she started about the comedy.